Hello, friends and strangers. I thought it would be kind of fun to make a little recap of all the game jams and university projects I was part of this year. I'm also going to put up some of the illustrations I made because there aren't enough finished ones to give them their own video or their own part. I've been mostly sketching in my sketchbook and yeah. Let's start with January. A little side note, the teams I joined for the game jams were either from my university or other game devs who joined the Discord server we were on. In January, I joined my very first game jam, the Ludum 52. I was the only 2D artist in a group of 4, and the theme was Harvest. At this point I was still unfamiliar with the people of the server and also a little anxious. So when it came to brainstorming ideas, the other 3 were coming up with the idea of a homeless person who collected food and drugs from the street, which is something I wouldn't have done or come up with on my own. But the other 3 seemed really excited about it, and I was too anxious to voice my dislike of this. So that's what we settled on. It was a 3D game, and I, as a 2D artist, made posters, graffiti for the walls. I also drew 3 characters, which are programmer and 3D artist, put on wooden blocks so they look like little board game pieces, which I thought was really nice. I also made my very first UI, which looking back seems like something I could have done better. But oh well. All in all, it was a nice experience. The team was kind and it made me want to do this more often. The game we made is called Hobo Harvest. I leave a link to it and the following games in the info box if you're interested. All of them are free to play on itch.io. Shortly after this, the global game jam started and I found myself in a new group with 2 programmers and some 3D artists. The theme for this one was Roots. And unlike my first jam, this was actually the first one out of all of them this year. I felt a little, pushed aside and anxious. This was another 3D game made in Godot, and the 2 programmers were constantly arguing to the point where voices were raised and it was uncomfortable to stay in the voice chat. I was tasked to make some wall decorations like in the previous games, which I did. I made a lot of posters and this is how it came out in the game, which saddens me a little, but it's also one of the few things that I made that actually appeared in this one. As the only 2D artist, I also made the UI, just some buttons and a life bar. They didn't make it into the game. And this was also the one time I dabbled into sound design. And with that I mean I watched a few YouTube videos, downloaded Reaper, and made music for the first time in my life. I made 3 songs. 1 for the menu, 1 for the game, and 1 for the end. The menu music made it in. The rest of the game is silent. This one is called Riddle of the Roots. You can find it on itch.io, but not on my page. In March, my university server held its own jam for 9 days. This was my longest jam and my realization that I like to stick to shorter ones. The theme was Achtung, Strom, which roughly translates into warning, electricity, or danger, electricity, or something similar. This was also the first time I made pixel art, and where I somehow took over the project management of this team. Still not sure how that happened, but I kind of scheduled and moderated meetings, made an overview of who makes which level, what colors are used where, what enemies we already have, and where we need some more. We were 7 people, which was my largest team this year, and we also had 7 levels planned, and all the art was finished in time. The problem was that we only had 1 programmer, who barely had time and also didn't tell us how the progress was coming along. We were kind of left in the dark the most time. At the end it wasn't working, but the programmer said he would like to work on it more. He said that 9 months ago. I'm not someone to talk bad about people, even though I feel like I've done it the whole time in this video. Just know that I have given up on him after the first few months. I am planning on coding this one because I think there were a lot of cool levels and artworks, and I've also kind of invested too much energy into that one. As in, I made a whole level, helped others with their level, made an intro video with only 27 frames, but still. I'm currently teaching myself how to code in Godot 4, so this will be something that will be revived in 2024. Maybe sometime in spring after my university projects should be done. The end of April brought the next Ludum Jam with its theme delivery and another 4.5 people team. All new people. One of them was only there for the brainstorming part and at the very end to pick out public domain sound effects. So that's where the half is coming from. Anyways, we brainstormed together and the programmer liked that tiny delivery girl that I sketched and wanted to do this one. The others were convinced, and thus Mushroom Mail was born. For this one I made the player sprites, the UI, a little victory video, and a lot of people seemed to really like the design of the mushroom girl, which made me really happy. Looking back, I wish me and the other artists had talked more about keeping a consistent art style, but all in all, I'm okay with this one. The programmer of this one also asked me to join a private project, which I will talk about at the end. My first university project also started in April. This one was about game art and the goal was to create an asset in 3 months. It had 3 phases. The first being for concepts, where we brainstormed and sketched out the game world from where the asset will be from. The second phase is about picking one character, setting a prop to make a model sheet for, and the last phase was for finalizing the asset. I made a concept about a murder mystery game with witches and picked one of my main group to make into a finished asset. The plan was to give her a full sprite sheet of animations, but then I found out that we only had to do an idle animation for characters, so I stopped at the walking animation, which is why the arms look a little weird in this one. After that I joined the Kenney Jam with 2 other programmers who had way more experience than me. This one was in July, and one of the rules was that we had to use Kenney assets. We could change them a little bit in colors and pick them apart and put them together. I joined this one because I wanted to try to code in Unity, so I was allowed to make the menu and the audio manager. I also picked out sound and changed up the assets in color and shape. The programmer who invited me wanted to make a tower defense, but the theme got revealed to be exploration. We made a reverse tower defense called Mob Battle Night of the Towers, which was kind of fun. In June my second uni project started and would go till August. This one was about analog games and we had the choice between card games and board games, so I made a mixture of that with like a storybook theme. I felt quite limited with my possibilities, but I've decided to revisit this one in a future university project where we can make a board game into a digital one. My plan is something similar to a Game of Life, but in like a 2.5D style, like Don't Starve. This is also on the list of 2024 projects. The end of September brought the 54th Ludum there, and at this point of the year I was feeling a little exhausted from university, but also a little restless inside. And I decided to do this one on my own with Godot, which is an engine I haven't touched before. I just didn't have the energy for human interactions at this point. The theme was limited space, and I leaned into my strength with this one, meaning lots of art, little coding. I was sure that I could at least make a visual novel. So Ludum there came, and I had Godot 4 installed with Dialogic 2.0 as an add-on, and I struggled. At this point, Dialogic 2 was still an alpha version and there weren't many tutorials on it or on Godot 4. So after half a day of fiddling with it, I did what any sensible person would do. I installed Godot 3 and started over. At this point, I already made rough sketches and a little 3D model of the room in Room Sketcher to use as placeholders. I got Dialogic to work, made some scenes, and tried my best with tutorials to add minigames. This game jam was at an unfortunate time because my mother's birthday was on the 1st of October, which was the second day of this 3-day challenge, and I woke up at 8 AM to make a cake, so I'd have more time to work on this later that day. I managed to make something playable, and there were a lot of nice people who gave me compliments on my first solo game and also gave me some good tips. So this was definitely a great experience. I've also decided to keep all the upcoming Ludum dares for solo runs from now on. The last game jam I joined this year was the Mini Beans 9 with the theme You Are Not Alone. This was a 2-day jam in November. I was in a group of 4 and half of it was sick, me included. Luckily, I wasn't the only artist on this one. Another one made the tile set and the UI. A third made the background and all the writing. I made all the character sprites, which amount to 9 illustrative sprites for the visual novel part and 88 pixel art sprites for player and enemies, which is my highest record until now. I also dragged myself out of bed on the second day to draw the level with the tile set provided in Godot. We managed to make a complete game with one level called Mantis, Your Inner Demons. I am currently in my 3rd university project, which started in November and will go to the beginning of February. This one is about making game design documents, and I've decided to pick up what I started in Project Game Art, the murder mystery ones with the witches. I'm currently in phase 2 and am planning to make a prototype for this one to teach myself more coding in Godot 4. If all goes well, I try to make the game itself on my own. Now to the personal project I was invited on after my 4th game jam, Majinko. This is a pachinko deck building game, and I started making art for this in May this year and finished this month. Most of the things I made were pixel art sprites for the player, enemy and the boss. I made the UI and a tile set. I redrew over the old artworks to make them pixel art, to tie everything together. And it went from this with bought assets and a mix of illustrative and pixel to this one. This was my longest project and I am satisfied of what it is now. And that's where I am right now, with 7 game jams, 3 university projects, and 1 slightly bigger project made this year. It was a little difficult because I'm constantly tired and feeling like I'm dancing on the edge of burnout for half an eternity now. But I made it to another year. And I'm slowly starting to build myself up and do things more consistently. Before that, I have always started a project after project without finishing any of them, and I want to change that. I feel like it's easier to finish minigames for jams, and I hope to be able to do that to my own projects as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said before, all the links to the games will be in the description. Have a good start into the new year.